Did you have instant success? Were there struggles? Kind of dive into, I would say, uh, let's break it down. Let's go up to like 2008, right? Or maybe even 2000. What was business like for you? What was the path that in the journey that you took?
Well, we had done a lot of, back then, a lot of farming in certain communities. So we would get a lot of repeat business just because, you know, they knew us and they felt like they knew us. So it was great because we'd go and, you go on a listing appointment and they talk to you like you're their best friend and you've never met the people before, but they'd seen you enough and you sold their neighbor's home. And then we did a lot of print media, which no one does anymore. I mean, well, I shouldn't say no one. You do some, but not as much because it's now
Right.
all digital and social media, right? So there's a difference, things change, times change. But I think the biggest thing is realizing that every client you need to have as an ambassador for your brand. And you
Mm,
are your brand, right? And you want to make that client an ambassador so that every ambassador, every closing, every client becomes not one, but two to three, right? So I think that's crucial. And then I think the second thing is teaching and learning, and I probably learned this from my parents, is that don't judge a book by their cover. So my parents, some of their friends, probably the one that he's a multimillionaire, his family still owns a ton of property down at OSU. Literally, if you saw the guy, you would think he was homeless. He always just put on whatever felt comfortable and never drove new cars. Literally, he was a lawyer, well educated. And so, if you saw him and you sat down to sell him a property, you would think this is like a homeless guy who I'm not going to get him anywhere. And he could buy and sell, most families in this town. And then they had, other people that my dad had hired that like drove up in these brand new cars and were debt, in debt up to their nostrils. So my parents were wise enough to show like, don't judge a book by its color because, you know, you don't know what's in the book, right? So
yeah.
take the time and get to know the person. And you see that we've all seen that. And then I think some of the big things were that we would take time with people to make sure we knew them. So it wasn't like a turn a trick, do a number, it's all a numbers game. We all know real estate's a numbers game, right?
Right.
You've got to see enough people to get enough closings. But if you know them, right, and they get to know you, they become again your ambassadors. And I think that was probably our crucial thing. And then even way back then when we were really young, there was even door knocking where we'd introduce ourselves to people in a community, which after the pandemic, no one will answer their door. But way back then, that was something we did. So people would be like, I remember on a hot day, you guys were out walking around, and I thought, that's what I want, because it'll work when it's 90 degrees out. And so, you know, I mean, there's different ways of working now, right? I mean, John, you're a master at like the whole social media game, right? So your ambassadors, your clientele are telling all of their friends about all that you do. Everybody has some niche, right? And so, find your niche and make sure that people know it because that's how they connected with you and that's how they'll get other people to connect with you. I think is the biggest key.
What
Just a thought.
what I like what you said, ambassadors, right? I grew up in the business. We called them raving fans. How do you turn a client
Absolutely.
into a raving
And
fan?
I had that book.
And I went through Ninja Selling, which is another coaching company, and they believe that for every one person that we help, they know four people that year that are going to be buying or selling or investing in real estate. What do you? What were some of the things that you focused on to turn clients into ambassadors?
Well, I think it changed through the years, right? So, in the beginning, so that we knew how we were perceived, we did some focus groups where we invited some people in, clients that were diverse, and had a really nice catered dinner. And said, hey, look, we're not selling anything. This isn't like a Tupperware sells. We're not trying to, we truly, honest to goodness, this is truly to pick your brain and get your opinion. And we would have everybody over and have this great dinner and have great wine and great fun and everything, and basically say, okay, we want to pick your brain about stuff. And we actually took notes. So we went through a few years that we did that every so often with groups of people, and it was fun because people like to socialize, right? And then we went kind of through a phase where we had a really large house, and we would do these big parties, right? And literally, like, I'd throw a Christmas party, and we would have Santa there, and we'd have pictures with the kids, and they'd all get candy canes, and tell Santa what they wanted, and the parents were there, so it was fun. So we went through years that we did that, and that was kind of a way that we connected with our clients, right? And then I kind of went through okay, I did enough of the partying and the big groups, and then it was, I'd rather do stuff one-on-one with people. So then it was like, hey, I want to thank you, and book a nice dinner with them, and then literally kind of converse one-on-one. And it may be the only time you see them in a couple years, but they kind of felt connected, and they, you typically pick a nice restaurant, one that they like, and you got to know them. And then it's kind of like still doing the focus group, only you're just doing it with fewer people at one time. So I think
Yeah.
that's kind of the move that I went through. And so now it's usually just like a one-on-one afterwards. And sometimes people are not big go out to dinner people. Sometimes they want to have you at their house and show you, and it's like, what can I bring? Some families, if they've got kids, it's ice cream, right? Other people, it's a cheese spread and a couple bottles of good wine. So, again, it's knowing your audience and being able to fit in and then converse.
Yeah. Did you ever get to the point of building like a large team or your own
I did.
brokerage?
I did. I didn't do my own brokerage. We almost did twice, and I'm grateful that I didn't, to be really honest about it. But I did. I got up to, I think there were 6 of us at one point working for me,
Okay.
5 working for me, and so when you're in it, it's great, and then when you're not in it, it's great. So I think just like anything, life changes, and so um, sometimes big is great, and sometimes small is great, and it depends on who you are, how you are, and how you want to work, and how you work best. So at that point in time, that was great. It was a well-oiled machine. It worked well. Loved it. Would I want that today? I wouldn't. And so, now being small is good. So um, I would say with a team, or even being small, and even having, just either, some people have gone to the virtual assistant, some people still have, a physical assistant. Everybody knows what's good for them. I think just knowing how you do your business is a key for anyone. I think everybody should have a procedure manual. I have mine. I tell every young agent to start theirs. When you do something, document it so it can be repeated. And I think one of the things is, when you think about, and I hate to say McDonald's, if you
Yeah.
want to sound classier, you can say your physician's office. Like, you don't go in there and it's happenstance, right? You don't go in, and some days there's a receptionist sitting there, and some days there's not. And sometimes you try to take your own blood pressure, and sometimes they do it. It's very routine. And routines are good. And when people say, well, I don't want to be routine. Really? Like, you go to Broadway and you see Cats. You know the theme, you know the lines, they've been rehearsed, but it still comes off flawless, and it seems perfect. And so I think that's the big thing that I like to teach younger, newer people in the industry is, make your own SOP manual. Have your standard operating procedures, stick to them, know them, be able to document them, be able to duplicate them. I think
Yeah.
that's key.
I'm right there with you, and it's because and we use the McDonald's as an analogy all the time, right? Like, for us to build the team, it was, how do we systematize this to run like a franchise, right?
Correct.
And the whole point of that isn't to be mechanical, right? But it's to be able to duplicate what you do for one client to the next, and to be able to predict the results that you want within the business by providing the same experience from one client to the next, from one agent to the next, and being able to understand that if we do the front side work the backside results will stay the same as
Correct.
long as we follow the right steps in the right order.